Boo, boo, boo! What makes you so special, Apple Studio Display? You don't have any local dimming zones or high refresh rate or HDR support? That's what the internet sounds like right now. But let me tell you 6 reasons why you should consider the new Apple Studio Display and why it's worth it. Hey, I'm Jerry, and when Apple announced the brand new Studio Display along with all of the other new products a couple weeks ago, this Studio Display was the thing that I was most excited for. And like so many others, I've been waiting years for Apple to release a brand new standalone display that didn't cost $5,000 without a stand. Waiting for a Retina quality display with a good design, great features, and consistency we expect from an Apple display. And now we have one. But people are really upset about the things that it doesn't have without considering the things it does have that so many others don't. So let's go through the 6 things I think that the Studio Display has going for it that may make you reconsider booing it. First up is the design, and it looks amazing from all sides. The display itself looks like a solid unibody construction in line with all of Apple's most recent products. Flat sides and sharp edges all around with perforations at the top and the bottom for fans and speakers. And you can't tell me that this doesn't look good. If you look online, there are a ton of display options and nearly all of them are made out of plastic, mostly black, but some have weird gaming colors all over them. And hey, if that's your thing, then more power to you, but it's not really the same market as this display. The stand design is just as nice, and there are of course 3 options for a tilt stand, a height and tilt stand, or a VESA mount. I went with the height and tilt stand and it's awesome. If you're familiar with iMac height, then the tilt stand and the lowest setting for this stand is actually lower than the display of an iMac. So you may need to look at picking up something like this Calibri monitor stand, which I've been using for years with an iMac and other displays, and I really like it. But if you have the tilt and height stand like this one, it's effortless to adjust back and forth or up and down. This thing just moves so smoothly and you can do it with one finger, unlike so many other plastic stands I've used. In fact, this stand is so solid that it barely moves the display when I shake the desk back and forth, compared to one of the best displays I've used before this. One thing I will say though is, all things considered, the bezels on this Studio Display could be a bit thinner. I'm not sure why they need to be this wide compared to others, but they're about the same thickness as the 24-inch iMac, and I don't think that it detracts from the design aesthetic, but it's 2022. The next reason to consider the Studio Display is the 5K resolution. Yes, there are a ton of 4K displays out there, and so many people will say that 4K is plenty of resolution. And I would kind of agree. They look okay, but at 27-inch 5K is just the right resolution for a Mac display. This gives you 218 pixels per inch, and when scaled to 2560 by 1440, that makes text, icons, and everything else simply the right size without losing any sharpness. You can scale a 4K display to the same 2560 by 1440 resolution to make things look like the right size, but they're just not quite as sharp. Take a look at this text on a 5K versus 4K. The text is just sharper and more clear on the 5K display. Eyes vary for sure, so how much you will notice this difference on a 5K versus 4K is going to be very subjective, but there is a clear winner. The next thing to consider is that the Studio Display just has better color accuracy and consistency right out of the box compared to any other display. Each display is factory calibrated and just looks bright and beautiful. When I take an Apple display out of a box, I can feel confident that it's going to have the same look as all of the other Apple displays I have, whether that's a MacBook, an iPad, or an iPhone. I know that I can edit a video or a photo on one Apple display, and it's going to look the same on all of the others. Other displays are factory calibrated as well, like this Eve Spectrum 4K, but as you can see, the colors between the MacBook Pro and the Studio are much different than the Eve display. I can make some adjustments to the white balance to get the Eve more in line with the MacBook, but it's never going to be perfect. Just knowing that there's nothing else you need to do to the color of the display feels good. I also know that many of my consumers of my content are on Apple devices, and what I export will be representative of what they or you see on your end. I know it's going to look right, or at least the same, because I'm not claiming to be some kind of good colorist, but if it looks good on these displays when I'm done, it will probably look good on yours. Now, some things that almost every other display lacks: camera, microphones, and speakers. That's not to say that no display offers a camera or microphone or speakers. However, it's extremely rare to find and even more rare for them to be good. Let's get the camera elephant out of the way. It's awful. We've seen all of the reports of issues with the camera in the studio display, and Apple has promised that this is an issue that will be fixed. I really hope that they're right, and if the camera quality is super important to you right now, then I would hold off on this. But for me, the camera is the feature that I need least in the display, and it's not hurting me right now. I do a lot of conference calls, but mostly never with myself on video. When I do video calls with family, I usually use an iPad. The microphones, however, I do use quite often, like between 5 and 12 meetings a day. There's an array of 3 studio quality microphones built in, like Apple's other microphones in Macs, iPads, and iPhones, and they sound perfectly acceptable in the studio display for most non-podcast scenarios. Then there's the speakers, and while I don't think that the speakers can replace dedicated external audio monitors for real audio engineering, I think that they sound really good. Better than they should in an enclosure like this. This has Apple's 6-speaker design with 2 sets of force-canceling woofers and 2 tweeters that offer great built-in sound and even spatial audio. When I first listened to the speakers, I was actually surprised at how good they sounded with bass. They're not a heart-pounding or chest-pumping bass, but it's a clear bass sound with mids and highs that never distort no matter how high the volume. They sound slightly better than the 24-inch iMac to my ears, and for most people who want a clean desktop setup, who are not audio engineers, these speakers will absolutely fit the bill for daily use. Now, another area that third-party displays just can't match the studio display is with macOS integration. The studio display can be controlled by the Mac keyboard in a way that other third-party options cannot. You can use the Mac keyboard to adjust the speaker volume and the brightness, making it super seamless. No fiddling around with the monitor's on-screen display to adjust brightness or volume output. It's easy and nice to adjust with the keyboard and know that it's going to adjust correctly. You can even be really granular by holding down the Shift and Option key while you adjust the brightness or volume. Then, because it's integrated with the Mac, there's the automatic adjustments for True Tone and brightness that make the viewing experience even better. Unfortunately, I don't use True Tone or auto brightness because of the color grading that I do. But for most people, this just works and it makes using the external display even better. You can let the display and Mac choose the best brightness depending on how bright your room is and change the color temperature based on the lighting. You've seen this on Macs and iPads and iPhones over the years, but not with external third-party displays. And even if they do have external brightness or automatic brightness control, it's just terrible, slow, and it's usually big steps between those brightness levels. Now, this isn't necessarily a Mac-specific thing, but with the single cable connection to a MacBook, the studio display will charge your laptop up to 95 watts, more than any other display, which usually hovers around 65 watts. Okay, and the last reason you should consider the studio display is instant wake. Look how fast this Mac Studio wakes up the studio display. It's like almost instant. Same thing when you connect to the MacBook Pro. Just as soon as you touch the keyboard or the Touch ID sensor, you are up and running. There's no waiting on the display to turn on and connect to the Mac. It's just ready to go when you are. Other displays take many multiples of time longer to wake up and let you get to work. It doesn't matter if you're using USB-C, HDMI, or DisplayPort, it's always just slow. So those are the 6 reasons why I think that the Apple Studio display is worth it, to me, for now. You'll have to weigh the benefits over a cheaper display or one that has the features that you want. For me, this display has more to offer than any other display that doesn't cost $4,000 or more. Would I like to have ProMotion and local dimming and better HDR abilities? Sure, of course. And if Apple released another display with those features, I will definitely consider it. But what do you guys think? Are there enough benefits of this studio display for you to pick one up? Let me know below. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked it. Hit subscribe if you want more videos like this, and I'll see you next time.